Welcome to the Ricky Mathews Show, the show that every single day celebrates the people who are working to make this great state a better place to live, work, and play. From the STMM Digital Studio, that's the digital marketing arm of SuperTalk Mississippi Media, and I'm thrilled to have them as a sponsor of my show, the studio of this show, and exciting times in this company. So listen, speaking of this company, I mentioned to my next guest that I told our producer that we needed to get Paul Gallo back on sooner than later, and then he pops up on the he's up next on the calendar, and I'm thrilled to have him. It's great to be able to touch base with someone like Paul Gallo from the Gallo Show here on SuperTalk. How you doing, Paul?
Good, sir. How about you? Can you hear me? Everything's okay?
We can hear you great. Yes.
Did Kyle do the right thing and get us lined up the right way?
Kyle is amazing. We talk about Kyle all the time. Listen, we shared this story, but Kyle does the music in the Superdome during the Saints game. So he was at the game last week. He had an entire repertoire of music. NFL's kind of different because they control a lot of what you do, and they get a lot of suggestions from players, and it's buttoned up. But he gets there, and they say, we want you to play a little less hip-hop and a little bit more maybe rock or whatever. Yeah. And because Kyle's got this huge WCPR background and this great knowledge of music, he turned on a dime and literally blew people away with how good he did with that. But he's a jack of all trades, and we're lucky to have him in this company, aren't we?
I have a saying that I've always had throughout my broadcast career is you keep your enemies close, but you keep your producers and engineer closer.
Speaking of that, man, Perez retirement, man, what a run that was for you.
It was, and it's been kind of difficult, but I don't know. I look at it in two different ways. And as a matter of fact, I woke up this morning and last night when I went to bed, I thought about I'm really energized, and I tried to do a little self-analyzing. Why am I energized? And then I realized because it is kind of a test. And can you do it? And I haven't had a test because you do these things in a Monday way. You're in day and Monday through Friday, and you kind of get in a rut a little bit. And now with a new producer in Lance, who is doing an incredible job, by the way, he brings something different to the show than Perez does. So I guess I'm taking off my talk show hat, going back to manager or owner or program director and all of those other experiences, and says, okay, let's see what you can do now. So the challenge is not to make it better or to make it the same, is to take it in a direction. Well, I shouldn't say better, to make it better.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, when we were trying to find a good replacement, which is impossible, you just can't find that. One of the things I ask the front office, Steve and Kim, is just, find someone we can work with and find someone that understands I'm kind of set in my ways, but who is willing to learn. And I think they found the right guy because Lance is, he's open to some suggestions. So am I. So what you do is you replace those assets that Perez brought, and there are so many of them, and you find where Lance has his own assets, and you build on those to replace them. And if you can come up even or better, and I want better than even, then I think you're okay. And then that's a challenge for me, and I look forward to that challenge.
I mean, it's exciting to see that. I often say that we never arrive.
No, you don't. You really don't.
The more we learn, the more we better learn how much we don't know. I mean, life's a journey of self-discovery and a journey of learning. And for you and I to be at this point in our careers and in our lives and still thirsty for more and better and different. And that's what keeps our shows interesting, I think.
Well, Ricky, I came from music radio, and I always say I was fired. I was almost fired a couple of times for doing too much talk back before even talk radio was. When I was first started, the only talk radio was Paul Harvey or a guy that we got tapes in to play at 10 o'clock at night called Joe Pine. And I don't think I've ever Googled Joe Pine up, but Joe Pine had a talk show back in those days. But I was fascinated about that. But how do you do it? Because you started off in newspaper, of course. So how did you ever get a hold of what the readers really wanted? I mean, what were the avenues or the assets that you had to gauge to say, all right, here's where we need to tweak this, or here's where we need to go? What were your barometers?
Well, it was really interesting. First of all, when I was publisher of the Sun Herald, we had over 130,000 daily readers of just the newspaper, not counting the website. And it was actually, we launched our website, sunherald.com, and it was making good progress. But it was after Hurricane Katrina that we came to really appreciate how important the website was going to be, especially out in the aftermath of the storm, because people were outside the area needing to get information from inside the storm and all that. So you get a lot of metrics. You get a lot of metrics when you have a website. But the metrics that we had on the circulation side, obviously daily circulation, were people buying the newspaper? Were they continuing to buy the newspaper? But we did, at least biannually, we did readership studies. I mean, comprehensive readership studies. And we really wanted to understand, when someone got inside of a paper, where were they, what was performing well, what wasn't performing well. When the publisher of a newspaper, incidentally, just like when you're a talk show host, you get a lot of feedback. You get a lot of feedback.
Do you ever?
So you got to learn to listen to your customers. And so we spent a lot of time listening to our customers, and I would answer my own phone. That always surprised people, but I didn't understand why. Somebody called my number, I answered it, and I would talk to them. And I couldn't get enough feedback, to be honest with you. The more feedback, the better. So that was really important. Times change, and as a digital tsunami took over newspapers, we got a lot more of our information from what people were engaging with online, because you can get pure metrics from that. Yep. And so now it's multimedia. How are people engaging the shows on podcast platforms? How many people are interacting with Facebook and YouTube and X now? No longer Twitter. Still very high on X, incidentally. I believe that Elon and his team are several steps ahead of most of us, and I felt that way from the very beginning. And the Threads, they hoped Threads would be this Twitter killer. Threads has lost all of its juice almost completely overnight, and Twitter's stronger today than it's ever been. It's quite amazing to see that. But you get all this data, and you're able to keep focused on doing what you think is best and what the listeners want, and you can drive the machine forward. So I'm a data geek. I want to get the more the merrier as far as I'm concerned.
I don't think. It doesn't matter what your business is. Anybody who's viewing this or listening to this, school teacher, salesperson, automobile industry, or whatever it happens to be, there's this old saying that's been around for a long time: don't let the SOBs get you down. And I know in this media, as far as talk radio or in newspaper and everything else, but it's applicable in every single thing. You're going to have naysayers. And the reason I mention that is it's nothing new. But I mean, they are front and center with their own microphone, with their own TV camera, their own podcast, whatever it happens to be. And sometimes they are extremists to get those views and to get those clicks. But that saying is not outdated. It may be written on a lot of bathroom walls, but it's just don't let the SOBs get you down. And you have to understand that today. You have to just, regardless of what field you are in, there are going to be some naysayers, but by and large, you just got to forget them.
One of the things that I've come to understand, having been a publisher for so long and growing up on newspapers, and then sort of being at the formative stages of online extensions of newspapers, and then pure digital media companies, having watched that throughout my career, I'm very aware that most of the news we get today, most of the information we get today, whether it be from the TV or whether it be from social media or whatever, it's gone through a filter. And in a lot of cases, it's passed through a bunch of filters. And in a lot of cases, those filters have a lot of political aspiration and political bias attached to it. People don't know what to trust anymore, Paul. And one of the I think the beautiful things of our shows, and this to your core, is that no one tells me what to say. No one tells me I got to do this or I got to do that. I mean, Kim and Steve have structured a scenario where they hire people they trust and they let us do what we think is right. And so the only filter it's going through is me. And so it gives, the other thing people say is that people don't have short attention spans, and that's certainly true with some. But a lot of people want longer form. They read a lot, and they want to listen to shows like mine and yours because they want to learn. They want to learn in an environment where there's not a lot of filters attached to it, and that's what we're bringing to them. Hey, why don't we do this? We're coming to the end of the segment. We'll let you respond to that on the other side as we continue this conversation with my dear friend Paul Gallo, someone I look up to big time from the Gallo Show here on SuperTalk Mississippi Media. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show. I have my friend Paul Gallo of the Gallo Show here on SuperTalk Mississippi. And, you know, Paul, one of the things I was saying that so many things have to pass through filters in the world that we're in today, whether, you know, you can make the Fox News arguments or the CNN or the MSNBC or social media. Gosh, there's so many filters. Let me tell you one quick story about filters, and then I'll get your reaction. Right after Hurricane Katrina, a reporter was sent down to the coast from NBC News, and I've actually got a thank you note that he sent me afterwards, framed over here to the right. And he was sent here to do a story about us efforts in coastal Mississippi to bulldoze African American and Vietnamese homes in the wake of Katrina to make room for more casinos. I said, are you kidding me? Those African-American homes and Vietnamese homes were wiped out, just like all the white folks' homes were wiped out. And the bulldozers that are there are cleaning up the debris. Let me take you there and show that to you. And I did. And he said, man, I'm so aware now of the situation. And then he interviewed me in the newsroom, and then he left. And he sent me a note not long after that. He said, you know what, in spite of all my best efforts, New York did not want to change the narrative they sent me down here to do. Yeah. And then he later sent me a note, you know, saying thank you for, you know, it was his way of saying he was sorry, you know. But God, man, everything's passing through filters today. And I think one of the reasons why SuperTalk has done so well is that people know they can come to us and they can trust what we're telling them, at least to the best of our ability.
Well, I'm thinking as someone who was in different parts of the broadcast world as you were as far as newspaper. It's a great asset because if you were an owner and you got to worry about what your publisher's going to do, and is he a wild card? Is he gonna let his team go too far one way or the other? So it's that trust has to start with the person at the publisher's seat or the person behind that microphone, because when you start getting with the litigious, all the lawyers that we have out there and libel and slander, I mean, it can. And I was involved in a $1 million lawsuit in another location. And it was one word a lawyer was suing us for, simply because it was written down for me, and I'm reading it on the air, and it brought us all into a lawsuit for $1 million, which was a lot of money back in those days. He got $250, $2,500 at the end to settle. But our lawyer was a guy by the name of Charlie Sullivan, by the way. I don't know if you remember that name, former lieutenant governor, but anyway. So that trust has to be there. And when it is, I think you get that leeway. But a lot depends on the person who's in that publisher chair or the person who is also in that air chair. And if you prove that trust. Because if you don't, it's going to be a heart attack for where the buck stops. Ultimately.
Man, it is. And that's where
you wield a lot of power.
Listen, an extraordinary amount of training goes into putting someone in a position like that. I had many, many, many years of it. And listen, when my last job as a CEO, there were 40 lawyers in the law firm that we did business with. We didn't own the law firm, but they only had one client. That's to give you a sense of how big they were. But,
Yes.
You had to, you almost have to understand, you have to be a pretty good, have strong awareness of law, especially around libel, to do the jobs that we do. And I can tell you that in 3.5 years, not one even close to threat in the work that I've done, because I know what you can do and what you can't do. I know what you can say. I know where the line is, and I know when I'm passing over the line. I know all of that, and you do too. But man, it takes a lot of years of developing to get to that point.
It really does, and if you see the counter to that, it's not pretty, because it draws the attention away from where you need to be. And then you talk about trust. We had to come in on this as baby boomers, and even a little bit younger, on the media and how a big part of social media is to the media itself. And the reason I'm saying that is because as a boomer, I've learned, putting so many hours in doing this, that if I read a story that seems, wow, that is crazy, and I mean, I'm ready to go on the air, put me on now. Let's talk about this. But if it's too good to be true or too bad to be true, I've learned to let me go to several other sites. If it's that big of a story, why isn't Fox talking about it? Why isn't MSNBC talking about it? Why don't they have this headlines? Why didn't I get it from breaking news from 15 people or 20 people I cover that sends me breaking news? So that's the filter that we've learned. And I think not only our age, but others are beginning to say, let's hold off on that one. And so we are learning how to root out the bad people, even on social media. And that's a learning process.
Hey, Paul, in the short time we have left, I mean, last time you and I talked, you made it clear that you're an entertainer, but you also are a serious entertainer. But when you cross the line of being an entertainer is when you get involved in a campaign like we just saw in the lieutenant governor's race, and you're willing to put yourself out there and stand up for what you believe in. And I just want to first of all say I followed you closely. I admire what you did. It took courage to stand up the way that you did, and when it comes to going gets tough in situations like that, the tough get going, and you did in that case, and I appreciate what you did.
Well, no problem on that one. And just a quick word on that one, and tell me when the time's up. But I had got the scars from so many of these different campaigns out there, and after going through the cancer thing for a while, and I felt like, let me just give the folks the information. And then it was not my nature. I just, at some point, I said, I can't do this. We have clear differences between these candidates, and I just can't sit on the sideline. And it was one of the things that I want people to know, when I choose one or the other, or when that, from all of that verbiage, it's coming from my love of the state of Mississippi, and to leave the state behind a little bit better than I found it. So we all do that in the ways that we can. I have never taken a dime. I have been promised a Tahiti vacation. I don't get a free fishing trip with anybody that's on television like Ricky Mathews and radio that get a free fishing trip. I do it because of the love of the state. And if anybody can prove otherwise, then I'll get you a boat. So,
well, that's the power of an independent voice. I mean, you work hard to not have political affiliations and not be seen in public with someone else that's in a political position. That's important. That then enables you to say, listen, I've earned my independent voice. I've earned the ability to be able to say what I think, especially when I believe the state's going in the wrong direction, because I love this state. Yeah. And that creates credibility, and it creates trust with your listeners, and people pay very close attention to that.
I had a gentleman that remained nameless that was not pleased with the stance I had taken on his organization. This has been a couple of years ago. This is when Ruth Chris was still available in the Jackson market. And he says, well, come on, let me treat you to a nice steak, big as you want, at Ruth's Chris. And I said, well, two things that's going to disappoint you. First of all, it's going to disappoint you that after I eat the steak by tomorrow morning, my views are not going to change. So you wasted your money. And the second thing is the amount of people that thinks I can be bought off because of a steak. But well, I think you're the same way. I mean,
I am, man.
You stick yourself in the middle of a beehive, and you've got to be ready for the sting sometimes.
Yeah, I stay out of it. I don't contribute to political campaigns. I tell people kind of what my basic beliefs are. But I maintain my, listen, when I was a publisher, I had to sign a 7-page ethics letter. And it said that we should avoid even the appearance of conflict of interest. That, it taught me early in my career how important independence was, having an independent voice. So then when you did speak out against people that you typically are with, they even respect you because they know you're doing what you believe is the right thing to do.
I got a question for you, and I hope we got some more time here. At what point did you see this happening, that everybody wanted to be an opinion writer, an editorialist, instead of a front page? Can you define when that happened?
It was almost immediately. Listen, but here's the big moment. In 2007, it's hard to believe that 2 years after Hurricane Katrina, Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone. And at that moment, it put the tool in everybody's hands and everybody became reporters. And then as social media evolved, it taught people, the desocialization of America is a huge thing, actually, that people are willing to, in their pajamas, say something to you from their bed, from the safety of their homes, that they would never say to you and to your face. And it, gosh, man, what's sad about that is that everyone's going through something in the world, and we have lost this connection, the social connection where we care about each other, where we bring empathy to the conversation. Maybe in the future we can actually talk more about that, because I have strong feelings about all of that.
We need to do this. We need to do this on a regular basis.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
I'll get you on my program, and that way you can get me back on yours.
For sure, my friend.
Hey, we got connections.
Yes, sir, we do. Paul Gallo, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you, my friend.
Man. Appreciate it very much.
When we come back, we have my friend Michael Watson. We'll talk about the election, but also what else is going on in his world these days, in the world of the Secretary of State. We'll see you after this.